Three divers planned to explore the shaft cave. On their way out, they got themselves into one of the scariest scenarios cave divers can get into, kicking up silt and struggling to find a way out. Would they make it out in time? For those who are not aware, there is a farm near Mount Gambier in South Australia that may seem like a typical farm with animals grazing in its fields. However, this farm holds a remarkable secret discovered by Trevor Ashby. It is known as the shaft, and it's estimated to be at least 393 feet deep. The discovery happened when Ashby's grandfather was plowing a field when a horse accidentally stepped through the surface, revealing the hidden chasm below. Initially, the family attempted to fill the hole by dropping a multitude of stones into it. However, they soon realized that the hole was so vast that their efforts were futile. To this day, the only way to access the immense cave beneath is through a small hole cleverly concealed amidst the grass. Once inside the underwater caves, darkness overwhelms the surroundings. The tunnels are numerous and labyrinthine, making it easy for divers to become disoriented and lose their way. Getting lost in such a cave is dangerous, causing an increased risk of drowning. This sinkhole is not only the darkest, but also the deepest ever recorded in the region. It holds significant importance for the South Australia Police water operations, who use it as a training site. As recently as last weekend, they utilized the shaft to practice their search and rescue techniques for locating people or objects in underwater environments. Kevin, Philip, Tony, and Douglas are a group of friends who had recently completed their college education. They initially met at a dive site during their time in college, where they discovered their shared love for diving. This common interest brought them closer, and ever since, they embarked on numerous dives together, forming a strong bond of friendship. Among the group, Kevin possessed the most experience in diving, having accumulated a wealth of knowledge and skills over the years. Following closely behind was Philip, who had also gained considerable expertise in diving. To commemorate their graduation and cherish the memories they had created, the group decided to plan a special diving expedition. They chose two different locations that held significant meaning for them. The first site they selected was the Moaning Cavern, a place where they first met. For the second location, they decided to dive the shaft. This choice was primarily influenced by Kevin, as he hailed from Australia. By selecting these two distinct dive sites, the group hoped to create new memories while also reliving the adventures they had experienced during their college years. It was a celebration of their accomplishments and a way to honor their shared passion for diving. On their first dive at the Moaning Cavern, located in Calaveras County, California, near Vallecito, an unfortunate incident occurred. Philip, while rappelling down into the cave, slipped and fell, resulting in a fractured leg. Recognizing the severity of the injury, Kevin, Douglas, and Tony swiftly shifted their focus toward ensuring everyone's safety and initiating an evacuation. The remaining divers carefully made their way out of the cave, all the while performing an initial assessment of Philip's condition. It became evident that his leg required immediate attention, and the group determined that splitting the leg would facilitate the evacuation process. Kevin utilized his knee pads as a makeshift split. He strategically positioned one pad in front of Philip's leg and the other on the side, providing the necessary stability in a vertical direction. With the splint in place, the group successfully helped Philip out of the cave, ensuring he received proper medical attention as soon as possible. Following medical advice, it was recommended that Philip refrain from engaging in any cave diving activities until he had fully recovered from his injury. Consequently, this meant that only Kevin, Douglas, and Tony would proceed with their planned dive at the shaft without Philip. With this knowledge in mind, Kevin, Douglas, and Tony prepared themselves mentally and physically for the upcoming dive at the shaft. 3 weeks had passed since Philip's accident, and he had made significant progress in his recovery. The group of divers, now ready for their next adventure, traveled down to Australia. However, due to Philip's injury, he would remain on the surface while Kevin, Douglas, and Tony prepared for the dive. On the designated day, the divers gathered at the entrance of the shaft cave in Australia. Led by Kevin, the most experienced among them, they geared up and made their way into the cave. It was approximately 10:05 a.m. when they began their descent, guided by the faint rays of daylight filtering through the small opening above. As they entered the cave, the divers diligently followed the main permanent cave line, which acted as a guide through the intricate passageways. At a depth of around 118 feet, they encountered a T-intersection, where two large tunnels branched off from a rock pile. During this exploration, something unexpected caught their attention: a jump reel left behind by a previous diver. A jump reel is a line used to mark alternative pathways within the cave. It appeared that someone had placed the reel there, but failed to retrieve it afterward, contrary to proper diving practices. Regardless of this discovery, the three divers decided to continue following their intended path. After reaching a depth of 147 feet, Kevin, sensing it was time to return, signaled to Douglas and Tony to initiate their ascent. Taking the lead, Kevin guided the group while Douglas and Tony followed closely behind. As they swam, they soon found themselves back at the familiar T-intersection they had encountered earlier in their dive. At this point, the safe course of action would have been to make a right turn, which would have led them back to the main guideline and eventually towards the exit. However, it became apparent that Douglas was experiencing some difficulty maintaining proper buoyancy in the water. Something seemed amiss with his buoyancy control device, making it challenging for him to stay level. Unfortunately, before he could rectify the situation, his movements caused him to accidentally make contact with the bottom of the cave, stirring up the settled silt. The bottom of the cave was covered in a layer of muddy sediments, causing the visibility to instantly decrease as the silt clouded the water. Recognizing the unfortunate turn of events, Kevin decided to maintain his position by holding on to the guideline, assuming that Douglas and Tony would follow suit. Kevin decided to turn right and commence the ascent, hoping that his fellow divers would do the same. However, instead of following Kevin's lead, Douglas and Tony made a crucial mistake by turning left at the T-intersection. Unknown to them, this leftward path led them into a progressively narrower passage filled with silt. This particular passage was intended for advanced divers who utilized side-mount gear, as it required a higher level of skill and control. Unfortunately, Douglas, still struggling with his buoyancy, unintentionally disturbed even more silt as they proceeded through the passage. To make matters worse, as they navigated the tight passage, Douglas's front-mounted stage cylinder became entangled in the guideline. Despite his efforts to continue moving forward, the line ultimately snapped, leaving him with the entangled line trailing behind him. It quickly became apparent that they had veered off course and missed the main exit. In low visibility and growing uncertainty, Douglas and Tony diligently searched for the exit, hoping to find a way back to safety. However, their efforts proved fruitless, and after several minutes of unsuccessful searching, they made the difficult decision to abort the dive. As they turned to retreat, the deteriorating visibility and the absence of a guideline became apparent. They lost sight of each other and physical contact, leaving them disoriented and isolated in the passageway. Moving through the increasingly constricted space became incredibly challenging, and with each passing moment, they found themselves feeling as helpless as blind bats. The realization that they were approaching the limits of their air supply added a layer of urgency and fear. Unfortunately, the tight quarters made it impossible for either diver to reach the regulator on their stage cylinder, which held the backup air supply. Trapped in the suffocating darkness, Douglas and Tony found themselves in a race against time. Their hours of remaining gas dwindled, while their hopes of finding an exit grew slimmer. When Kevin reached the surface, he met with Philip, who was waiting for his friends to come back. When Philip told him that the rest of the group hadn't come up yet and were still underwater, he immediately started to feel guilty. He should at least have waited for his friends when he was holding his position onto the guideline, instead of starting his ascent and hoping his friends would follow. Therefore, Kevin was determined to find his friends and get them to the surface safely. He thought they might be close by, so he immediately dived back in. He followed the same route as he did in his ascent a few minutes earlier. He also searched different side passages, as they might have taken the wrong turn when exiting the cave. Kevin was keeping track of the guideline to ensure his own safety and not get lost himself. He tried searching for them in different ways, but he couldn't find them. When he arrived at the spot where he had seen his friends the last time, he was in complete shock. This part of the cave was completely silted out, which drastically reduced his visibility. He realized that his reserve air, which is a limited supply, would soon run out. He couldn't afford spending too much time searching for his friends and putting his own life in danger. He decided to bang on his air tank with the back of his diving knife to try to let his friends know in which direction they needed to swim in case they were still in this silted area. He continued to do this for a few minutes to give them some time to follow the sound and get to him. Unfortunately, they didn't show up, and Kevin had to make the hard decision to return to the surface before his air ran out. While returning, he felt horrible and very worried for his friends. But he found some consolation in the thought that his friends might have gotten back to the surface while he was looking for them. Philip waited anxiously at the surface, hoping that all his friends would emerge this time. However, when only Kevin resurfaced, Philip became very worried and started to panic. They quickly switched to their rescue plan, knowing that immediate action was needed to help their missing friends. They quickly contacted the authorities and told them everything about the diving plan and what had happened. Kevin thought that the missing divers might have accidentally gone the wrong way because the water had low visibility. The authorities got in touch with the rescue divers who were nearby. 4 rescue divers put on their diving gear and started searching in the parts of the cave where the missing divers were likely to be lost. When they arrived, they found a lot of silt in the water, and they used it to figure out where the divers might have gone. The silt led them to a narrow passage with very poor visibility. There, they found a broken rope that was supposed to guide the divers. They searched for a long time, but the visibility got worse, so they decided to stop. The next day, the water was still silty and they couldn't see well. They continued searching for 2 days, but they still didn't find anything. But on the 3rd day, they found Tony's body. He was located around 32 feet inside a narrow passage that usually only experienced divers with special equipment can access. Unfortunately, Tony was stuck in a tight space, and the team couldn't retrieve his body. They tried multiple times over 2 days, but they couldn't succeed in recovering him. So only one of the missing divers had been found, but they couldn't bring his body back. The local recovery team decided to stop their operation, and the authorities called in 3 divers who were experts in recovering bodies and working in difficult conditions with limited visibility. These experts agreed to continue the recovery attempt. During their first try, the team managed to secure Tony's body using a special harness they had made. One team member helped by removing rocks and keeping the line steady. They worked in complete darkness, relying on their specialized equipment. With their efforts, they were able to bring Tony's body out of the narrow passage. Other divers who were already involved in the recovery operation in the cave helped bring the body up to the surface. The entire recovery process took approximately 5 hours. The following day, the experts continued their search for the second missing diver, Douglas. They went past the spot where they found the first diver and once again faced poor visibility. One of the divers went deeper into the passage, reaching 39 feet further and a total of 72 feet into the passage. There, he discovered Douglas's body, which was facing him. To bring the body out, the diver had to remove Douglas's cylinder, which was attached to his back. As soon as the cylinder was detached, it floated up, indicating that it was empty. The diver then cut loose the front-mounted cylinder, which sank, suggesting that it was full. That cylinder was tangled with a large amount of cave line that Douglas had accidentally pulled loose during his journey. After untangling the cave line, they were able to pull Douglas's body to the same location where Tony had been found. They followed the same recovery process as they did with Tony. The entire process of recovering Douglas's body took approximately 6 hours. Two promising young men lost their lives in pursuit of their passion, and their friends, families, and the caving community grieved them for a long time. Cave diving will forever remain a dangerous sport. So, dear divers, dive safely. We would like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, take a dive on the like and subscribe buttons and hit the bell icon so you get notified when we come back with another exciting cave diving story.